Greetings, I am Albedo, Chief Alchemist of the Knights of Favonius, and welcome to the very first installment of TCG deck reviews. In this series, I will be showcasing deck lists and gameplay footage submitted to me by you guys. I will also be providing some of my insights towards the end of the video on how I would improve the deck. If you would like your deck showcased, let me know in the comments. Today, we will be taking a look at a deck submitted by user OKBoomer from Reddit, featuring the Magu Kenki, Fischl and Jean. The goal of the deck is to efficiently deal as much damage as possible with Superconduct and Swirl by taking advantage of the Magu Kenki's unique ability to apply Cryo to multiple enemies at once. Begin the match by double summoning with Kenki on turn 1. Remember to keep at least 3 Cryo dice with you in the dice rolling phase, because activating the Cryo summon costs Cryo dice, and you can only tune Anemo dice with Kenki as the active character. Next, swap over to Fischl and apply Electro to the opponent's active character by summoning Oz. At this point, all of your enemies will have an element applied to them, which means that it is now an opportune time to swap to Jean. As you can see, by swirling Electro from Eula onto the other 2 characters who are affected by Cryo, Jean is triggering a total of 3 elemental reactions with just 1 action, consisting of 1 swirl and 2 superconducts. Not only does this deal a total of 11 damage, but it also forcibly disrupts your opponent's game plan by switching out their active character. From this point on, you will be playing at a massive health advantage. All that's left to do is to wrap up the game by spamming Gale Blade on Jean. Now, let us discuss the strengths and weaknesses of the deck. In the case of this deck, its greatest strength is also its greatest weakness: the reliance on summons to deal damage. Summons are naturally very dice efficient, often generating more value than regular elemental skills. The caveat is that they apply their value at the end of the combat phase, which has its own pros and cons. The main advantage of having backloaded damage is that your opponent cannot switch their characters in between elemental strikes to avoid reactions. Also, if an opponent's character gets knocked out by damage from summons, they would be unable to capitalize on the card I haven't lost yet, which is a very impactful card that often decides the outcome of games, as their character died on the previous turn during the end phase. The main drawback of having summon-based damage is that your opponent is free to set up their combos during the combat phase, as all of your damage and reactions will only occur during the end phase. Also, if your opponent were to use the card Send-Off on your Cryo summon on turn 1, not only does this remove the potential damage that could have been done by the Cryo summon, it also means that your Anemo summon will swirl nothing onto your opponent's characters, effectively delaying your game plan by 1 entire turn. Such an event will put your opponent in a massive dice advantage and can be a deciding factor in your games. Now let's take a look at the cards in the deck. Personally, I would remove Kenki Talent, Catherine, Sacrificial Bow, and Sacrificial Sword. In their place, I would run Paimon, Liben, Aquila Favonia, and 1 more pizza. Kenki Talent switches your active character from Kenki to the next character after he summons his Anemo dude. It is good in the sense that it saves you 1 dice from having to switch characters. However, when we compare it to other cards in the deck that save you dice when switching characters like Anemo Resonance and Changing Shifts, we will realize that the Kenki Talent is essentially just a less flexible version of those cards. The same can be said for Catherine, which is extremely dice inefficient when compared to Anemo Resonance, and leave it to me. The sacrificial weapons are removed because a majority of the damage that will be dealt in the game comes from summons, which are unaffected by the +1 damage that weapons give. Paimon and Liben are generally good cards that for the most part should be included in every deck due to the flexibility that they offer. Since Jean will often be the character taking the last stand against your opponent, you want her to be as tanky as possible, which is something that Aquila Favonia does nicely. With that, we have come to the end of today's deck review. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.